Okay, so I'll be speaking about the topic of my postdoctoral research that actually started already during my master's degree. This is part of my research that I'm currently conducting. And I will be explaining to you a bit the setting of the Armenian diaspora in the city of Plovdiv in Bulgaria, which is a very under-researched context, actually, even though it is a very important diaspora, especially in the Balkans, like the most important Armenian diaspora in Southeast Europe, we could say. And I will be focusing on the topic of language endangerment and on the transnational diaspora institutions that are supporting language preservation and also a sense of cultural identity, a transnational identity, and also the memory of the genocide, and in a way the symbolic identity that derives from this setting. So first, some considerations about the current status of Western Armenian language. There are two variants. So one is Western Armenian, the other is Eastern Armenian. Western Armenian language is the one that is spoken in the diaspora, mainly in North America, Europe, the Middle East. So Bulgaria also is part, of course, of this setting. And the Eastern Armenian is the one that is based on the dialect that was spoken in Tiflis, in Georgia, current Georgia, while Western Armenian was based on the dialect that evolved around the Armenian Patriarchate in Constantinople. So these are the main two differences. And there are some varieties. The two languages are mutually intelligible, but there are some important differences. And I will then also come back to this. And so Armenian language, Western Armenian, has an official status as a minority language in several EU countries, not only in Bulgaria, but also in Romania and in Cyprus and also in Hungary, actually, but also a strong historical presence in different European countries because Armenians were one of the oldest diasporas. Their migratory movement started many centuries ago, already during the 5th century, let's say. But this has been going on in a different series of migratory waves. And the most important migratory wave started after the First World War, so after the Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire. And much of the Armenian diaspora today is thus a descendant of those refugees that escaped the massacres in the Ottoman Empire. So Western Armenian is an immigrant language, a diasporic, and a refugee language. And in the original Armenian homeland that is located in today's Turkey, Eastern Anatolia, this language has become almost extinct. And so it is severely threatened, let's say, even though there have been many positive signals and initiatives in the last years in Turkey. So this means also that the fact that in the old lost homeland, the language is not present, together with the community, of course, that is not present. This creates a specific, also imaginary, let's say, an empty space that is felt by members of the Armenian diaspora as something highly problematic and that is a cause of suffering for them. So Western branch of the Armenian language is a non-territorial language everywhere. This means that it is not used as a state language officially or as a language of administration of public life. Only Eastern Armenian is used in current Republic of Armenia. So this is the big difference between the two variants. And during the course of the last century, this Armenian variant has suffered sharp decline in its use, and it was considered and categorized by UNESCO as a definitely endangered language. This is why maybe sometimes people do not really fully understand why Armenian is considered an endangered language, because they think, okay, it is spoken in the Republic of Armenia, but actually it is a different language. And in any case, it is threatened as the language of minority communities in the diaspora. So this would already contribute in making it endangered in terms of loss of linguistic diversity, of course. So the problem is mainly due to the fact that there has been disruption in the patterns of intergenerational transmission of the language. So here is just a map to show you where Plovdiv is. So it is located in the southern part of Bulgaria, very close actually to Turkey, which is also a fact that somehow implies a series of let's say, emotional reactions in members of the Armenian diaspora that sometimes have the chance or want to travel to Turkey, especially to the first city after the Bulgarian-Turkish border, which is Edirne, and from where some of their ancestors also came from. And in Plovdiv, the Armenian diaspora is a very old diaspora, so it was actually already in the 5th century that an Armenian community was established, and then different migratory waves followed. Armenians were always very well integrated in the society, in the local society. They were wealthy merchants and craftsmen and even physicians. So this means that they were always occupying a very high status in society. And this also had an implication and a positive effect on their language skills and the preservation of their language, because they felt that it was a highly prestigious language to be spoken. So Armenian had this prestige, let's say, associated. Of course, as I mentioned, the most important migratory waves occurred between the end of the 19th century, with the first Hamidian massacres, and then with the genocide, so just after First World War. But the migratory waves haven't stopped yet since the dissolution of the USSR. A new wave has begun. So people from the current Republic of Armenia, so Eastern Armenian speakers, have started arriving. And this has created also, let's say, a more heterogeneous situation in the city of Plovdiv. And the two members of these two variants of the language do not always go very well, like, together, let's say, don't get along so easily with each other. And nowadays, around 20,000 Armenians live in Bulgaria, so according to Armenian organizations, and a bit less according to official sources. This is just a map to show you. It's from 1867. If you can read German, it's written Armenisches, so it means that there was already a well-established Armenian neighborhood in Plovdiv. This had always been the most important part, Armenian part of the city, and it still remains. This is also very important. So all main institutions belonging to the Armenian community are still found in the same part of the city, like historically, and it's in the very, very historical center. So this is just a map to show where Armenians came from. In Bulgaria, they came through Black Sea, actually, the Black Sea, so from Istanbul, Constantinople back then, through the ports of Burgas and Varna, while others came from Izmir and then Thessaloniki, and then came to Bulgaria. So it was also heterogeneity in the migratory waves that took them to Bulgaria. And it was very, let's say, generous, the response by Bulgarian authorities, since they opened the borders to welcome Armenian refugees already at the end of the 19th century, and then again after First World War. So they welcomed more than 20,000 people each time. So the peculiarity of, let's say, linguistic patterns and use of Armenian survivors in Bulgaria, many of them actually did not speak Armenian, but they spoke Turkish and started learning Armenian only when they arrived in Plovdiv with their children at school, that were going to the Armenian school. We will now see that there is an Armenian school. And many others maybe spoke Armenian, but wrote it with Latin characters, or others knew Turkish and wrote it with the Armenian characters. So again, a very different, let's say, series of situations and a heterogeneity within the community. So it's difficult also to, let's say, generalize and create some series of cause-effect connections that are not always real. So this is, for example, a model of an Armenian newspaper that is written in Armenian, but then there is also sections in Bulgarian and French. So this is also some patterns of multilingualism that can be detected in the printing activities of communities of that moment. Okay, I speak so much, so it's better that I go faster because I have so much to tell. So as I mentioned, there are around 20,000 Armenians in Bulgaria, and 4,000. Of course, it's very difficult to define how many Armenians there are, because there have been also mixed marriages. Many people do not declare their Armenian belonging in the census. But let's say that the Armenian community in Plovdiv is very visible also. They only constitute 1% of the total population of the city, but they are definitely very present also in the public spaces of the city. You will see many Armenian buildings and Armenian writing around. And of course, they also occupy a prominent place in the intellectual and cultural life of the city. And so, as I said, again, Western Armenian is an endangered language in Bulgaria. And so around 2,000 speakers of Western Armenian live in Plovdiv. And then we have also the Eastern Armenian speakers, the more recent ones that maybe have not yet become part, let's say, of the official data and statistics. This positive model, let's say, of integration has been defined by Armenian scholar Boris Levon-Zekian as differentiated integration. So it is a way of becoming a part of new society without losing the cultural and linguistic identity. It's also an awareness of the memory of the past, but an ability of adapting and, let's say, creating a kind of identity that is not exclusive, that can be multi-layered. So one identity does not exclude the other. You will always hear Armenians saying, I'm Bulgarian, I'm Armenian, I could be also something else. So there is not an exclusive idea of a monolithic, let's say, identity, because this is especially their strength of these Armenian communities that have been able to preserve their identity. And this is why they have never been isolated and never self-ghettoized, let's say, or anything like that. So this is also an important pattern of a transnational identity, because of course, being Armenian implies being in contact with other Armenian communities all over the world, but also now with the Republic of Armenia itself. So there are many different levels of confrontation, let's say, in terms of identity and also language. So the main Armenian organization worldwide at the diaspora level is this Armenian General Benevolent Union, so AGBU, Parekor Tsagan, and it is linked also to the activities of the church, but it especially supports cultural, educational, and also humanitarian activities. It was founded in 1906 in Cairo, but the Bulgarian branch was opened in 1910, so it means it's more than 1 century since its founding. So it is very important in the terms of preserving this transnational identity and in fostering interdiasporic contacts and relationship with the Republic of Armenia, also through scholarships, grants, and a lot of dialogue across communities. Also, one of its main functions is that of preserving identity in terms of a symbolic sphere of belonging, and it makes use of important cultural symbols, the main one being the Armenian alphabet, which is an autochthonous alphabet, so it's an alphabet that has been created precisely and exclusively for the Armenian language already in the beginning of the 5th century. And the Armenians are very proud of their writing system. And this is also probably a reason why they still care so much about learning the language, and maybe not being so fluent or competent in that, but at least being able to read and write the alphabet. So that's also maybe another exterior sign of belonging that doesn't always imply full competence in the language. So this is the creator of the Armenian alphabet. Of course, he's remembered in all possible ways through pictures, images, etc. And another component is, of course, the idea of the lost homeland, as I mentioned before. So this is, for example, a memorial plaque that is located in the local Armenian graveyard in Plovdiv that remembers the places and the towns in Ottoman Empire where Armenians used to live. So the Armenian school in Plovdiv, sorry, I don't know how much time I have left, but I really wanted to say some things. So, so the Armenian school is the most important Armenian school in Southeast Europe. It was founded already in 1834, and it always continued its activities, only with a small interruption that was actually very important and negative in terms of language preservation during the late communist period in Bulgaria, when ethnic minorities were not allowed to have access to education in their mother tongue. And it's considered a very prestigious school, not only in the Balkans, but also by other communities in Plovdiv. So the interesting thing, it is also attended by children that have other backgrounds, like Roma and even Turkish and Bulgarian. So this is extremely important in terms of being exposed to a truly intercultural and multicultural setting for children. 4 languages are taught, so Armenian, Bulgarian, English, and Russian. And that implies 3 different scripts, if you think about it. So these children, I believe, are particularly lucky to have this opportunity. Only 3 hours of Armenian per week, actually, but this is, of course, very important. So it's the main exposure that children get to the Armenian language. And unfortunately, after this school that comprises 7 years of education, there is no other institution. So there is no Armenian high school. And this is the main problem and the main challenge for language preservation. These are some of the interiors of the school.
5 minutes, please.
Yes. So symbols of the alphabet, the previous image shows this, the Armenian flag, where it is written, "I love my mother tongue," and the Armenian alphabet always appearing as a monument, as a symbol. And the spaces of the church. So when school education in Armenia was interrupted during late communism, some parents of children started voluntarily and spontaneously organizing the so-called Saturday schools. So this was supported by the AGBU, the Armenian Diaspora organization. So they were secret classes, but these have continued up to today. They continue, of course, in the spaces, free spaces of the church and of the local organizations. And this is also another way to preserve the language and to expose children to other contents that are not only linguistic, let's say, but also have a lot to do with identity and memory and a kind of also ideology and national identity, of course. And in the setting of the Saturday school, a very interesting platform has been used recently, which has been developed by the
not now anyway.
By the Armenian.
A lot of the cases were postponed, but postponed now till January.
I'm hearing someone speaking. Sorry, if you can mute yourself. So the Armenian Virtual College, which is a new experimental, innovative platform to allow children to also interact with adult children in diaspora and to be able to, let's say, face the challenges of digitalization and globalization, and at the same time being exposed to contents that are very emotional, maybe, and very cultural, but also being able to do these virtual tours of Armenia, which is both historic Armenia, let's say the lost homeland, but also the Republic of Armenia. So this is a very important tool that has been developed and used with a lot of success over the course of the last years by the Armenian community in Plovdiv, and of course also elsewhere in the world. And these are, the challenges, the main challenges of Armenian language preservation in Plovdiv. So as I mentioned, there is no high school after the 7th grade. So in the past, there was this important Armenian college in Cyprus, and some very, very talented, lucky Armenians could go there and attend it, but this has closed in some years. So there's a big void in this. There is a bachelor program in Armenian studies at the University of Sofia, and the AGBU provides some scholarships for talented students who want to pursue their education in Armenian studies, but still, this is not really enough. The point is that the language is really slowly eroding, and the future seems very uncertain. And even though Armenians have never really assimilated, it seems that from the linguistic point of view, the situation is very, very negative. And it could be that over the course of the next 30 years, young Armenians will not really be able to, especially to transmit their language to younger generations. Some positive examples, of course, are the local newspaper that is still also funded by the AGBU. It is bilingual. Yes, I'm almost done. It is bilingual, actually. It is Bulgarian, mainly Bulgarian, and some parts in Armenian. So this is also an encouragement because the AGBU tries to employ some local young Armenians who wants to do an internship and maybe want to somehow improve their language skills in Armenian. So this is an encouragement, but of course it is not enough also because there is of course a limit in the number of people that can be employed. So other positive, sorry, I don't know what happened. Oh, no. There's also a local Armenian publishing house, also part of the AGBU of this diaspora organization. And that also is trying to promote local Armenian literature, always bilingual, mainly sometimes in Bulgarian exclusively. And we could also ask ourselves, is it possible to promote a positive language attitude towards Armenian by using Bulgarian? It is a very problematic question, but sometimes it actually has positive effects.
2 minutes.
So I'm actually finished. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.